Well, joining me now is Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois. He's also a member of the House Intelligence Committee, the committee, of course, that those individuals appeared before today. Thank you for joining us here on BBC News, Congressman. We just heard there from a retired US Marine Corps colonel telling us that this information, if in the public domain, would have allowed US enemies to pinpoint and potentially destroy US military personnel. He considers it absolutely classified material. Were you satisfied with what you heard from the individuals who appeared before you today?
I would have respected them a lot more if they had owned up to it and said simply, this was a horrible mistake. We'll never do it again. We understand the ramifications of that, and just taken their medicine, right? The press cycle would have been over. But the problem is, because of the fact that they didn't accept any blame or responsibility, refused to call it for what it is, classified materials, and that we could have lost service members, I have absolutely no hope for them. And I agree with almost everything your previous guest just said, except there's another concern I have, and I think that they should be fired. And here's that additional concern. Why would any other of our allies trust them again with confidential, classified information? I've been on the Intel Committee for now 8 years, and have learned all too well just how important shared information is with our allies, how it saves American lives, how it saves service members' lives, how it helps us do our military job better. The fact that they now see what can only be called a clown show with extraordinarily classified information. We were blind lucky that this mission succeeded. And the fact that it did succeed shouldn't be a waiver for the sins that took place here. Particularly the fact that they wouldn't accept responsibility. That's what troubles me almost the most.
And Congressman, when you're talking about how allies might view the sharing of information in this way, I mean, in that original chat, there was some commentary from the Vice President, from the Defence Secretary about the EU, about Europe, that they had a shared loathing of it. Is that damaging for relationships as well?
Look, standing alone, yes, but you add it to the speech at the security conference by the Vice President. You know, you hear comments about NATO standing alone, the extraordinarily poor way that the Oval Office press conference was handled with President Zelensky, with the realization of how important Ukraine is to the security of Eastern Europe and even to ourselves, and how we've distanced ourselves, never criticized Putin, blamed Ukraine for the start of the war, ended USAID. And it all adds up. Putting tariffs on our closest allies, and America has to start asking itself, do we have any allies? All right, you have to go back to FDR's last inaugural, great foreign policy advice. He basically said, if you want to have a friend in this world, you need to be one. You know, who are we being a good friend to right now? So you put this on top of all these other things. That's what concerns me most,
Okay.
that you're all less safe as a result.
And if you think, Congressman, that the individuals in this chat should be fired, I mean, that's not the view that's shared by President Trump. He's kind of said mistakes have been made and lessons have been learned. What does need to happen next in terms of investigations or accountability?
Well, look, you need an independent investigation to make sure we understand what exactly took place. And part of that would be recommendations for the future. But let's just remember, the recommendations are going to be the most basic 101, right? I mean, we were taught, if I were to have gotten this information through the Intel Committee, and I had talked to someone on a commercial app about it and it had gotten out, you know, the Republicans would have ousted me from the committee, and with justification. They would have sought to throw me out of the House with justification. You simply don't do these things. This is a 101 recognition of securing incredibly important, sensitive information. Lives are at stake. So, look, the investigation needs to take place. The report needs to come out. But I'm going to tell you right now, the recommendations are what we have a pretty good idea of. It's not that, oh, oops, by the way, we don't want to use a commercial app. And by the way, you don't want to have a reporter in the loop when you're talking about these things. It's all going to come out with things that we know. The original sin here is appointing people who are inexperienced sycophants who don't understand the role of intelligence and the Department of Defense in all of these roles and how important our allies are. That's hard to overcome with any investigation.
Okay, well, the President and those individuals would obviously reject your characterization of them, but Democratic Congressman from Illinois, Mike Quigley, thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News.
Thank you.